Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Catalyst Conversations. I'm your host, Hadriana Leo, and today we are diving into a topic that many high achievers, yes, that's you listening, you avoid this topic because it feels like a when I have time problem, like one of these days we'll deal with this kind of situation. And that is a conversation around retirement. Yes, yes, retirement. Don't go. But the wealth architect, the person listening here who is doing well financially, you're at the peak of your career, retirement for you is not actually a finish line. It is an evolution into what's next. So joining me for this conversation is Ms. Jhanell Biggs, the founder and CEO of Morrow. Morrow. Moro. We'll dive into that as well. Jhanell is a thoughtful optimist and a brand strategist turned accidental entrepreneur who is solving one of the most complex puzzles of the modern professional's life. And that is how to think about retirement when you're in your peak earning years and how to support aging parents who are already there. So, we're discussing why retirement starts now. We're talking about how to navigate that encore career and the brave conversations that we need to have with our parents today. So, Jhanell, welcome to the show.
Thank you for that intro. I think I need to steal that and use it to announce myself anywhere that I go.
Anytime you can just take that piece of the recording and hit play.
Yes, that was awesome. Thank you. You made me sound like a top-notch CEO.
Well, what did you think you were?
I
You are
know, you're
exactly
right.
that. No, no,
You're
we got to
right.
celebrate that because so much of what we're talking about today is rooted in identity. But before we kind of dive into the identity question, I want to kind of start with you and your experience because you describe yourself as an accidental entrepreneur. Me, not so accidental, but definitely not a planned entrepreneur. What was your journey into entrepreneurship like?
Yeah, the reason I call myself an accidental entrepreneur is because like I didn't plan for it. I didn't have dreams of becoming an entrepreneur, but the kind of funny thing about it is I've always had ideas and business ideas and I would write them down and I have a notebook that I would write them down in and I have a like or on my notes app. But I just never thought of me really doing much with it. I liked the security of having a full-time job. I was working in advertising and I really enjoyed it. And then I came to a point in my career where I was looking to pivot out of advertising because I was getting a little bit burnt out and I wanted to see what was next.
Yeah.
And one of the key kind of indicators for me to pivot was that I thought about my boss's boss, and I knew I didn't want to be like the chief strategy officer. So it was time. But of course, I spent all those years, went back to school, got a master's degree. How do you pivot? And what do you do next?
Yeah.
And so that's where the accident kind of came in. I came across some information about longevity, aging, and retirement, and I pursued it.
Yeah, yeah. You're a data nerd, right? You're
I
all
wouldn't
about the stats.
call I'm more of an consumer insight person. So that's
Ah,
less, I mean, yes, data is a part of it, but a lot of what I did was finding um freak facts or interesting observations or statistics that really would help me uncover something different or interesting about a consumer and tap into it. So if it
right.
was getting them to buy something, getting them to reorder, it's using like the behavioral economics and kind of psychology, all those things kind of mix in together to get people to kind of do or buy the product that I was selling.
Right. No, that's good because now I'm curious about what it is that you found. What freak fact or what coalescence of
Yeah.
information came together for you to choose to do what you're doing now?
So it was two things were happening at once. So from a professional stance, I came across data from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics about home health aides being one of the kind of top jobs by 2030. And I
Mhm.
put it in, I just remember I had a deck open and I just started throwing facts into it. And that one stood out to me because I was like, well, I thought it was gonna be something more tech related. And here you have home health aides. And I was like, but why? And as I started to dig into it, I learned our populations are aging. People are wanting to age in place, so live at home, not going to nursing homes. And so that was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And then it led me to a space of retirement and what happens when you retire. And both of my parents are at the retirement age at the time, about a year and a half ago. And I saw my mom in particular really struggle to think about what was next after work. So much of her identity was tied to her profession. And so that's how I ended up in this space. Like then I knew that I wasn't a financial advisor and didn't want to become one.
Right.
But obviously, finance is the first thing that you think about when you retire. Will I
Yeah.
have enough? And so I wanted to think about the gap that happens and the gap that exists when people really focus on the financial piece, but not on the lifestyle piece.
Yes, it's very similar to the gap that exists in the work that I do because when we're talking about wealth, people focus so much on the numbers. They're not thinking
Uh,
about the mindset, the behaviors, the
yes.
trauma, the stories, and all of that that goes into it, and trying to meet that need. So I'm really glad that you landed in the space that you did. So how would you describe what it is that you do? Because I remember being fascinated when I read it. And I'm like, no way you don't. Like, yes, she does. Tell
Yeah.
us how you describe what you do.
So it's non-financial retirement coaching in a nutshell, but it really is helping people to think about how they are going to spend the rest of their post-work years constructively. And
Right,
so for me, that boils down to the quality of life. And the work that I do is very personalized, very individual. We know that no two people will retire the same. So if you and I both retire with $2 million or $50,000, our retirements are going to look completely different. When you kind of level, if you were to level the playing field, right? We lived in the
right.
same neighborhood, same amount of money, et cetera, right? And so I think it really was important for me to think about, okay, if we see that the data also is showing that when people retire, the number one thing that they're looking for is purpose. But we also see that there are a lot of risk factors. So when people retire, social isolation can increase, things like depression and anxiety. And so the goal of my company, like the long-term goal, is really to help reduce the incidence of those things. And I think the best way to do that is to really work with people to put together a very tangible plan, right? So we're not in our sessions, we're not just sitting around chit-chatting about like what you want to do. It's really helping you set yourself up for success when you retire, or if you're in the middle of retirement and you're like, whoa, this isn't going the way that I thought it would.
Yeah, I see that a lot. I
Yeah,
see a lot of now what do I do?
right.
After I no longer have to get up to go to work. I no longer have to plan my life around a work schedule. And suddenly the calendar looks alarmingly empty,
Correct.
and the hours of the day seem to last
Wow.
forever.
Correct.
So I can well imagine that there is a dire need for the work that you do. You actually shared something that I thought was quite insightful. One of your mottos, or I guess something that you percolate on. You said the
Yeah.
ultimate form of preparation is not planning for a specific scenario, but a mindset that can handle uncertainty. Tell me more about that in as it relates to the work that you do.
So yeah, I don't know, I can't even give credit to where I found it. I have actually a little notebook that I write down little quotes and sayings that I like so I don't forget. So sometimes I'll sit and I'll flip through them. I think it's a helpful exercise. And so when you asked that question, I was like, this one has been, like you said, percolating, especially now that I'm an entrepreneur, because one of the one of the things that I kind of struggle with is uncertainty about a lot of things. But when you're an entrepreneur, right, the uncertainty can be, when's the next client going to come?
Yep.
When's the next, when am I going to be able to pay my bills? Am I going to, be able to make this dream or this business actually become fruitful and something that I can live off of. And so the work that I had to do, and it's a work in progress, right? I didn't just wake up and have this mindset that is really just about handling uncertainty, right? It
Right.
did take a lot of thoughtful kind of writing. So sometimes I would write journals and write about things that made me uncertain and then think about ways that I could reorient what that means. So like the uncertainty of not knowing when the next client would come, that would make me want to think harder about the strategy that I'm using to find the right client. It helps me think about um, being very much prepared too at the same time. I think that mindset is also important. So you do have to show up prepared. But it really is, I mean, I don't know. Do you think about the uncertainty as an entrepreneur, or just in life in general, right?
A
The
hundred
mindset,
percent.
yeah. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, you do find yourself like you might make a plan and realize that it didn't come to fruition. And then what, right? I would fall apart. I'd be like, okay, I pitched a client and I didn't win. But you
Right.
have to go into it with the mindset that, yes, I want to be optimistic because I think it's important to be optimistic that you will get the client. But
Right.
at the same time, know that rejection is okay. And how can you take this rejection and then plus up the next move?
Yeah, yeah. No, that's really important because even in working with your clients who are starting to think of or have already entered retirement age, there is so much uncertainty in what comes next.
Yes.
So there's almost this, I wouldn't say love-hate, but there is certainty in uncertainty.
Correct.
And and your work, from what I understand, and you can by all means correct me, your work helps them create certainty with room for
Yes,
uncertainty, but not
exactly.
just leave it all up and say, let the chips fall where they may. So you're helping us maneuver. Is that easy? Because in my mind,
It's
working with a
not. I'm sure you experience it too. You're helping
oh
people
yeah.
make financial plans, but what happens if the person loses their job tomorrow? That's the uncertainty that you have to deal with. Or the
Mhm.
markets change and then they lose, like, so those things are okay, but what are the things that we have in place? And that is where the mindset comes in that you don't completely freak out because
Mhm.
it can be a freak out moment. But for the clients that I work with in terms of uncertainty, so a lot of them, you kind of stated this up front, which was really important, that the thing that work provides is that structured
Mhm.
time. And so
Right.
now that the structured time is gone, be that, maybe you loved or hated work, at least you knew that from Monday through Friday, you had something to do and it was hopefully constructive. You
Right.
were either moving your body, walking to work, maybe you had a physical job, whatever it is. And so now how do I help them plan for the uncertainty? And so I do a lot of scenarios. So where do you want to be in, yeah, where do you see yourself in the next 12 months? Just like any other kind of career planning too. And I kind of put together these, we call them quests, these life quest plans. And so I help people think about if their interest lies in, say, they want to be a DJ, right? They want to pursue something musical, right? We'll create a scenario and a plan for that. It could be also another creative interest, like maybe teaching is something, or going back to help people, young entrepreneurs. Maybe that's another scenario that we plan for. And then also we think about, okay, suppose your health starts to decline. What are some things that you can do if you're not as physically able? And so that's where that mindset and that uncertainty comes in. But you have different ways and different levers to pull should you need to.
Yeah, that I find to be quite a great way to approach it
Yeah,
because to be honest, I think we should start thinking about retirement like in our 30s.
I
You
agree.
know, 30s, early 40s. We should, and I'm not saying this from a perspective of save your money. I mean, everyone should be saving, so I'm gonna leave that
Right.
alone. But from the perspective of I'm not going to be doing this all my life.
Correct.
You know, This is not going to continue, whether intentionally or unintentionally, whether planned or unplanned. At some point, we're all going to stop working. So let me ask you this. There are those of us who really enjoy what we do. We enjoy the income, we enjoy the respect, we enjoy
Mhm.
our accomplishments. In fact, we enjoy the challenge
Yeah,
of our work.
you earned that title that you went to
Yeah.
school for and all the promotions you got. Sure.
Yeah. So as far as we're concerned, I don't want to retire,
Right.
but maybe I want to do something different. How do we kind of release the identity of what we're doing now and getting so much joy from enough so that we can actually start to think about something different?
Yeah. Okay. That's a really, really difficult question. And a lot of my clients struggle with the identity piece. And
Mhm.
so there are a couple of different ways that we can approach it. So you can think about it as, okay, say you were a teacher, right? Your identity is being of service to your students and what it means to be a teacher. And maybe for you, that was great. And there are things from that identity that you want to kind of carry with you. So we look at you, we kind of look at all the skills and interest points of your work life. And then what are the things that you kind of want to bring with you through your transition into retirement or whatever that encore career can be. And then we start to develop a plan based on that. So if you liked being maybe you're a teacher, you don't, maybe you were an elementary school teacher and you're done working with the younger kids, maybe, right. And so, but you do like, being an educator means you are bestowing knowledge and also receiving knowledge from your students. So that's something that I would take with the client and be like, okay, how can we how can we take this thought and turn it into something else for an encore career? It could mean working with adults. It could mean starting your own tutoring business. There are different ways that, we can take some of those tangible skills that you liked as a teacher and transition. For others, they may say, I've been a teacher for 35 years. I don't want to do anything close. Like that was my identity. I kind of want to reinvent or reorient who I am. And I think this is a chapter of your life to do that type of work. Is it easy? No. Because I think what a lot of people don't really consider is that when you retire after being XYZ for a number of years, there's a certain level of grief that you have to go through, and you have to allow yourself to grieve the loss of who you were as a doctor, lawyer, farmer, whatever, right? Because that is so true to who you are. Because think about it, when we go to a meeting, the first thing people ask you, oh, who are you? What do you do for work? And so what do you say now that you're retired?
Yeah. Well, I'm a retired so and so, but there honestly though, I think societally,
Yeah,
and I'm talking about more North America, and I do see it creeping into my experiences in the Caribbean where I'm from.
right.
There was a time when we had a respect for our elders,
Correct.
when being an elder in the community was a position of respect and admiration. But I found when I came to North America, it's almost like
Mhm.
they take their elders and pack them away.
Right.
And so I think the idea of retirement has taken on a connotation that is negative, as if I have gone past my best by date and
Right.
I have less to contribute.
Offer. Yeah.
But I dare say that that is so wrong because there is a wealth of experience and wisdom in everyone who has made their contributions in a specific field or in a sector or what have you, and they're deciding, you know what, I've done my part here, but they still have the skills.
They still have skills, right? So what are those transferable skills that you can take with you that can be applied anywhere? So I would want to apply those transferable skills to an interest. So like for me personally, this is kind of a wild card, but my interest in music, right? I won't ever be like a music engineer, but DJing is something that I'd be interested in doing.
Right.
Um, in retirement and something that I would start working on now as a way to kind of help me grow and transition to that, right? So there are ways
Mhm.
to take whatever interests and transferable skills that you have and bring it with you because retirement really is empty. And what I mean when I say retirement is empty is that I think people have this false idea that it freedom will bring all the like it comes pre-filled with all the things that you want it to be, right? You have this like brochure picture of travel and golfing and all the things that the we see on TV and we hear about, but you don't really see it, right?
Mhm.
It's not empty. It is, sorry, it is empty, right? You have to fill it with all the things that you want to fill it with, the people, the community, right? That's also going to be important. So I know you talked about in the intro, like retirement is now. And when we say retirement is now, it does mean trying to think about how you're going to fill your retirement. So
But and
yeah.
and I dare say it's not just how you're going to fill your retirement. I think, and correct me if you've seen something different in your
Hmm.
training, but I feel that the fuller our lives are now, the better our lives will be in retirement. And by that
Yeah.
I mean not
Yeah.
filling a calendar of time, not
No,
just filling
no.
time, but we can't just be our jobs.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
We are so multidimensional. We can't give all our energy in our working lives to work. We have interests. We have things that excite us. We have curiosity and all these things that make us who we are. I dare say, Jhanell, the better we are at, having well-rounded lives now, the better we'll be when we
That's
choose
it.
to
That
retire.
that is, if I could put that on a billboard somewhere, I would, because people, the kind of mantra is that you're retiring with something, not retiring to. So you're retiring with all the things that you had before. It's not like work ends, retirement starts, and you have to. I mean, some people reinvent themselves, sure, but it should feel like a transition, like you're bringing all the things that made you who you were into it. And then you're changing things around. Like, yes, milestones will happen in retirement, right? Your health will likely change. A spouse may die. Your children may move away. You may have grandchildren. There's so many things that happen. And so, how do you start thinking about it now and creating the stepping stones or building blocks for what it can be in 20 or 30 years from now?
Yeah, yeah. That I personally define retirement
Hmm.
as working because I want to, not because I have to.
Correct.
And that's the definition that I use with my clients when we're doing this work. How do you like define retirement based on the various clients, personas, stages of life?
Hmm.
How
Hmm.
does how does the definition of retirement change for the different people that you work with?
Yeah, that's a good point because retirement, when I started doing this work, I didn't like the word retirement and I was trying to use other words.
Mhm.
Longevity, there's so many words, right, to describe it. Ultimately, I just say the word retirement because we know what it means. If I
Right.
tell people I'm a longevity coach, most people will not really understand, but longevity is kind of what we're getting to.
Right.
And so I think retirement really is, as I said before, a very individual um,
Mhm.
experience that we really need to think about how we're going to fill it with things that are lasting, but the way to get there is to start creating those lasting habits, routines. So like for example, I have a client who wanted to start exercising and like
Mhm.
needed to really get in shape and he struggled and it's because he didn't exercise. He wasn't a gym person his entire life.
Right.
And that really kind of hit me too. Like, okay, I want to be someone who's more in shape when I retire. I should start my gym routine now in my 40s. And like at least because can you imagine being 65 or 70 and entering the gym for the first time?
No, I will not because I know what it's going to feel like.
So then you start
Especially,
now.
yeah, especially if and this comes back to identity, especially if you have been a go-getter, a high achiever through your career, through your those high energy times of your life, you're probably having the same approach to like, okay, now that I'm retired, I'm going to the gym and we're going to be flex, we're going to be fly, and we're going to do all the things. And you can barely walk straight when you're leaving there.
Yeah.
I can imagine that that would be a specific challenge. But here's something. I want to switch this a little bit because many of my women, many of our those who are listening to us today are kind of in that sandwich generation. They
Yeah.
are being proactive and
That's good.
starting to think about their retirement, planning financially, mentally, emotionally for that transition because they are used to, they want to keep contributing. But their parents are in that space of either actively like engaging retirement, going into it now, or they have retired. And I don't know about you, but for many of us, we are our parents' retirement plans. For some of us, our parents worked hard to change the trajectory of our lives. So they did not have time to nurture interests. They didn't have time for hobbies. They
Yep.
didn't have time to like, oh, well, this is interesting. Let me try that. They didn't have that as their experience, but retirement is upon them. How do we have that conversation, or is it even our place to have the how would you like to experience retirement conversation with these parents?
Yeah. I mean, that's primarily when you ask me how did I start the business or how I got here, that's essentially the personal side of retirement that I started to experience, right? This is a firsthand experience, and it was immigrant parents. My dad, my sister and I were his retirement plan. My mom, on the other hand, is very much prepared in terms of financial, right?
Right.
But then you're asking about how do we start having these conversations? And I think we all have to just get a little bit more comfortable with the uncomfortable
Mm.
conversations.
Mhm.
And that means starting it a little bit earlier and just recognizing who your parents are and was kind of the best approach, right? Because we can't tell them what to do. And certainly I've realized that telling my mom or what she should be doing in her retirement is not, even though I know what I'm supposed to be doing with other clients, right? It's a different client, mother-daughter relationship, right? So
Yeah.
like I struggle and it's not easy when you have to have these uncomfortable conversations with your parents.
Mhm.
But I
Yes.
think if you one remain open-minded and let them share, do more listening than talking, I would say first. And make sure that they're in a comfortable space. Like simply ask them, can we have this conversation? If they say no, respect it.
Okay. Wow. What I mean, they
And
may not
try
want to have
again.
it.
They may not want to, but for at least the first time, I wouldn't force the conversation. No one wants to have a forced conversation. And then you say, okay, maybe ask, when do you think you'll be ready to have this conversation? And see what they say. I hope that they say, because you don't, and let them know that they're not making decisions today. This is just the start of a conversation about, and if it's about finances, you should, maybe set aside some time for finances, set aside some time. And I know within the Caribbean and Caribbean diaspora, having conversations about wills and estates, like all those things that you need to do to prepare,
Yes.
it bodes in your favor to do it earlier than later when, God forbid, a health scare happens and now you need to be the health proxy and you don't know any of your parents' information.
Yeah, and this, I think it's worth reiterating that this is not just about how much money do you have for a funeral. This is also about, what would you prefer us to do if there comes a time when, you can't live in the house anymore? Would
Right.
you want to move in with one of us? Is that your expectation? Because I think I need to know
Yeah,
that you're expecting to move in with me
right.
if anything happens.
Everything that happens. Yeah.
That is a big life change for everybody. And can you
And
imagine the emotions involved in that if
it is.
first time I'm hearing about it, but mom expects to move in with us
Right.
if anything should happen. Having these conversations ahead of time, I think it's one way to prioritize and save relationships.
Correct.
Um, Probably even avoid resentment and those things where this is you're doing what you're supposed to do as opposed to doing what you find joy in doing. So it's definitely more than just about numbers. The numbers are
Yeah.
important, but it's more than that. How are you seeing retirements that have been planned shaping up? How are you seeing, those people who have taken the time to anticipate and transition into retirement, enjoying it? What does that look like when we actually do that?
Yeah, I think it looks like clarity and
Mm.
confidence. I
Hmm.
think, and of course, all the other happiness, and not, and there's not to say that there aren't highs and
Yeah.
lows people still experience, but I think the clarity is what people come to me or any type of retirement coach for. The clarity in having a structured plan with room for like uncertainty, right? As we
Mhm.
talked about earlier, and they feel like they are in charge of what happens next. I think a lot of times, we lived our lives or they've lived their lives. They went to school or had kids and got married and they did the things that they were expected to do. What I like about the people who come to me and that are proactive about it is now they're maybe their kids are older, their grandkids too might be older, and so it's just kind of me time. And they get to be a little bit more selfish, but they have the clarity to do the things that they want to do when
So
they
I'm totally gonna ask you if you've had a scenario where that person is struggling to have the conversation with their kids and saying, you know what, bye bye, see you later, I'm out of here.
I
Because
haven't, but I mean, I'm sure it happens every day, right? Once you realize that this time is yours and you have the confidence, right? So clarity and confidence to make those moves, because I think what happens to people who fail to plan, unfortunately, is that they can get into the spiral, right? Analysis paralysis, because remember when I said retirement is empty? The emptiness can be overwhelming so that you don't know where to start, what to do. And so now you're just kind of there. And before you know it, a year or two has passed by and you look back and you're like, well, how did I spend my time? And so for the
Mhm.
people who are proactive, what I see them, like I had a client who one of her biggest goals is to learn French. And so she started it in high school. Obviously, that was a long time ago. And so she's like, well, I have the time now. And we talked about the benefits of, for her cognition with, learning a new language and how it can help stimulate and be good for her mind. And then she said she'd never been to Paris. And so she was going to learn French, learn as you can. And so
Yeah.
I introduced her to options. So you can take it at a community college. You can use, Babbel or Duolingo. And so she wasn't really aware of how to start. And so we got her started. And so, she hasn't told me if she booked the flight yet, but the goal is for her to get there. And so for those people, that's what a planned or more proactive, proactive choice to making their retirement really come true is what you see.
Yeah. So if you were to talk to that woman or that person who's kind of stuck in that analysis paralysis, what is like a first step that you would kind of recommend to help them kind of break out a start, do something?
Yeah, it's always about starting small and building off of an interest that you like. So something that you're currently doing and try to add a little bit more to it so it doesn't feel too overwhelming. So if you currently, maybe you're a part of your church and you volunteer at the soup kitchen once a week, I would say if there's an opportunity to do it another day or find another soup kitchen to go to because you're already in the mindset of like volunteering and giving back. So there might be an opportunity for you to, or maybe you want to be more take it a little bit further and find ways to talk to your friends and get them to donate things to you. And then that's and you're adding to whatever is being given at the soup kitchen or donated to the people who need it. So that's what I would say. Start small and give yourself the room to kind of try again, but don't feel that you need to be doing something every single day, although it would be good to be active and out, but just, start small.
Yeah, I like that because sometimes we do things just to not not be doing things. It's almost like let me do anything as opposed to sitting here. But I feel like a big part of your coaching is also exploring you and what do you love and what do you enjoy.
Mhm.
So filling the calendar is a byproduct of the work that you've done to explore yourself, to explore
Yeah,
what you love, what you enjoy. If we were to kind of take a look at, the woman with the parents that we need to have that conversation, what's one question we can ask? Maybe just casually throwing it into a visit to mom or dad this weekend. Where do we
yeah.
start with that?
Yeah, I mean, it could be like one question.
We got to start somewhere, Jhanell. I'm like, listen, listen. Okay, so my parents, my
Uh-huh.
dad was fiercely independent.
Correct.
So
Okay.
he had all his papers, everything was in a row, ducks in a row.
Okay,
So
good.
when we were when he retired, he went and he started, I think he just wanted to be in the middle of things at his little shop. He set up a little shop on the main street back home.
Oh,
And I think it was just gossip center. I'm just going to tell you because he got
and
to
that's
talk to his
cool.
people and catch up
Yeah.
on the news and all that. He probably sold nothing for the day. He was fine. So that one, he did it. When he was approaching the end of his life, we had conversations about where what is, what
Okay.
simple, right? So in that light, to be honest, I didn't feel like I could bring up the conversation. It felt invasive. It
Huh.
felt so I'm really thankful that he
That
was
he had,
okay.
yeah.
But for that parent that, got it all together, they might think, depending on how you say what you say, they might think, why you want to be up in my business? So I can imagine that there might be the child, the adult child,
Mhm.
who is kind of like, how do I kind of start things off? What do I say so that I don't want to be stepping
I
into
mean,
places where
I
I'm
think,
not supposed to
yeah,
be.
I think, man, it's a tough one because I think we know if we look out into the future, we know what's going to happen, right?
Right, right.
Unfortunately, right? At some point, we're going to be likely primarily responsible for either paying their bills, their health proxies, all those things. So
Hmm.
I think for me, the conversation, if it's more of like the kind of nuts and bolts stuff about retirement or living or aging,
Hmm.
you there really isn't a it's a very uncomfortable conversation
Yeah.
to have.
Yeah.
But it could be like what I did with my family. My mom was dreading having this conversation about putting together her will. So I made it. My sister did one, I did one, my uncle did one, and my mom, we all did it together.
Got
And
it.
it really lightened the load. And it wasn't, she didn't feel like we were just focused on her because she's the oldest person in the room and she's going to, and I know in her mind, she's like, oh, they think I'm going to die soon. I know that's what people are thinking, right? When you start
Right.
talking about that. So I try to make the environment as light as
Mhm.
possible and make sure that we were all a part of it because it's important, just as important for me to have a will than it is for her, right? I don't know
Yeah,
what's going to happen to me tomorrow.
that's right.
So I think making the conversation light and maybe trying to do it. Also, if you're a family and the family dynamics are tricky and they're siblings, someone should someone has to kind of be the leader. So you need to figure out the roles that you play and who's responsible for what. So it might
Right.
be that one sibling is really responsible kind of for the health stuff. The other sibling might be responsible for the fun lifestyle focus, like how we're going to get mom or dad to do XYZ and how they're going to transition, like that part.
Mhm.
And then maybe someone else is the financial piece, because really it is a lot like managing someone else's life plus
Yep.
your own. And if you have children, you also need to know the go to parent teacher meetings and all the other play dates and school homework and all those things. So I think having people who are dedicated or responsible and talk about like I know my role with them is my sister and I, what we have to do. Like we kind of have set roles. It
Mhm.
didn't start out as being defined, but now it is more defined. And so I recommend that people do that. The tricky part is that I, when I first meet a client, I do try to ask to speak to their family members because I don't really also get into the weeds of like the day to day of who's going to the doctor, right? All that's kind of outside of my purview. So I'm giving you my personal approach and opinion.
Mhm.
But then in terms of the lifestyle coaching piece, how I would approach a parent if you saw that they were struggling to retire or struggling through retirement, is simply having a conversation about what is it, if you could probably change one thing about your retirement, what would it be? And
Ah.
then work with them on that. And I think sometimes depending on how tech savvy your family member is or your parent is, it could simply mean that they just don't know what's available. And so you just have to simply Google, look up resources,
Mhm.
and present it to them.
Yeah, yeah. I actually love the idea of assigning roles. There's a certain family dynamic that it could naturally occur, but
Yeah,
sometimes it needs to be specified.
I agree.
And when the roles are assigned, then we know exactly who's doing what, if someone needs support, if something's missing or someone's dropping the ball, we know where we need to pick up and we know where we need to let go. So I actually really love the idea of the role assignment. And to be honest, I think we need to remember that we're not trying to take over their lives.
Correct.
We're just there to offer what support we can. Because if it's one thing you said that just kind of sat on my mind is that if you see them struggling, and we do see, right?
You have to pay
We
attention.
we do see. You need to pay attention. What are they saying? When you go visit, what's the feeling in the space? Are they bored out of their minds and,
Right.
just sitting there? Do they not have? We do see. And if you are
Yeah.
intentional to look and to observe, then I think having the conversation would be easier because it's coming from a place of, hey,
Yeah.
how can I help? How can I support?
Yeah.
It's very different. These are things that we don't actually think about. And I'm
Yeah.
thankful that you have the training. And I'll tell you honestly, I'd probably prefer if you did it.
Yeah, no, I think that's people have come to me from the millennials and Gen Xers for their parents, and that's why I think I know it's an important thing. Another thing to do in terms of having that conversation, what I would ask is I would say for your listeners who are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, that they should start as early as possible
Mhm.
when they want to have the conversation because it might feel a little bit lighter. Like maybe your parent is 5 or even 10 years out of retirement. Start getting a sense of what they're into and kind of pay attention to what they're into and maybe um invite them out to things with you. See what really resonates with them and so that you can help steer them so that when the 60 days, 90 days before retirement, it doesn't feel like, oh man, we should have had this conversation. Now it's time. And your parent is probably terrified and scared, and then the conversation's more difficult. But if
Yeah,
it feels more
definitely.
casual prior, then it should lessen the blow, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree wholeheartedly. You know what? This is good, and this is a start.
Yeah.
I think one thing that I have gotten from this is what we have taken for granted, that is retirement, can actually be a wonderful experience, not just for the person who's retiring, but also for the family and friends that, kind of gather around them as they transition through this.
Hmm.
Everybody can have a great experience through that retirement process. So tell my people where they can find you, Jhanell. Where are you in the big bad interwebs
Yes,
and all of that?
yes. If you'd like to learn more or to set up a consultation with me, you can reach me at my website, which is trymoro.com. And then you can find me on social media at Moro Coaching, and I'd be more than happy to get to know you.
Yes, indeed. And don't wait until you're walking out the door with the box, your office in a box with your
Right.
whole life, your whole career kind of whittled down to one little office box and maybe a
Yeah.
gold watch. Don't wait till
Oh,
then.
wait. Let this
Do it now.
conversation, yeah, be an entree into that world, if any.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thanks so much, Janelle. I'm so happy to have had you. I
Thank
really
you.
enjoyed this conversation.
Likewise. Thank you for giving me the platform to share more about myself and my company.
Awesome, awesome. Well, we want to thank Janelle once again for kind of reminding us that the most sophisticated strategy is one that actually accounts for your human experience, not just for what you've achieved or boxes that you've checked off, both your own achievements, your own experience, as well as the experiences of the ones that we love. So if you're feeling the golden handcuffs of your career, or if you are kind of stuck in analysis paralysis of what the future could look like, just remember that retirement isn't about fading away into the distance. No, it's about evolving into that next signature move that you're going to make. So be sure that you find Jhanell at trymoro.com. Learn more about her work. Expose yourself to the information that you need now, because I like to think that I'm playing the long game. Like I'm here for like the long haul, and I'm going to be excellent at every step. So be sure to reach out to Jhanell. And if you're ready to move from being a successful earner to becoming a confident wealth architect, be sure to go over to my website, moneynavigator.ca. Take the Catalyst Index, diagnose your wealth blind spot, and start building a legacy that is your unique signature. So, until next time, be confident, be unapologetic, be 100% you. Enjoy your life, make it rich and full. Take care.